All right. Matt, the mortgage guy, live Monday at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to talk about the housing market, talk about mortgage, talk about all things we are seeing. It's a holiday for some. You know, half the title companies are closed, half are open, so it feels kind of quiet today. Let's talk about whether it actually is quiet in the real estate industry or if it just feels like it today. I would love to have tons of questions to answer. Let me know what you're feeling, seeing, and hearing in your market across the U.S. We know for a fact that mortgage applications are down, record lows in years. And it's not just that people aren't applying for refinances. They're also, less of them are applying for mortgages. A stat I heard this morning, 18 million folks no longer qualify for a mortgage. So sometime in this live, I'm going to talk you through a buy down strategy that's either going to lower your mortgage payment or allow you to qualify for more in a market where demand is diminishing and sellers are going to have to start looking at the very least, offers with contingencies, looking at offers with some seller concessions. I've got some pretty cool strategies that I think are going to be important for the second half of 2022. In 2018, towards the end of it, when rates were going up, these rate buy down strategies and other strategies worked then. And so I know they'll work now, right? It's just a matter of who's employing them, what real estate agent and mortgage professional you're working with, who you're talking to. So we'll talk about this in this video tomorrow at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. The video that I made comes out talking about that specific strategy, how it works for investors, how it works for owner occupants, just the same, right? And so, yeah, we'll jump into any and everything having to do with the current housing market, what's working, what's not, what to expect, all that good stuff. PB, thanks for joining. I'm glad you asked this question because I was trying to pull up, I had a video saved from earlier about ARMs. They are increasing, but we're nowhere near the levels of 2007. Diana Olick, of all people, she's on CNBC. She talks about housing a lot. And usually is pretty bearish. I was surprised at some of her comments on a video that came out this morning because she was basically defending the housing market and talking about how the housing market is a lot stronger than people think, and comparing it to 2007 is kind of foolish in a ton of different regards. One was current number of arms versus the number of arms in 2007. It's not even close. I don't remember the exact numbers. Another metric that folks were looking at was like delinquency rates. We're at like near historic low delinquency rates. So anybody who thinks that mass foreclosures are coming, probably out of their mind. And something else. I wish I could get it to pull up. I don't think once I can get it to pull up, maybe I'll even play it here. Does anybody know rules with YouTube? As I'm going live, I can stream something else that's on YouTube, right? There's nothing against that. If I just want to comment on it, Meet Kevin does it. I should be able to do it, right? It's a good one. It's talking about mortgage market red flags. So maybe if I can get this pulled up and I could get the sound into my mic, we'll do that. Maybe we'll watch that video together. I think it's good, especially considering it's coming from Diana Olick, who I feel like is generally pretty bearish. She's not talking bullish. She's just talking reasonably and saying, don't compare this to 2007 because we ain't there. Anyhow, all right. What's up, Art? Thanks for joining. Appreciate you being here. PB, how's it going? Hope all is well. Drew, I'm glad you asked where investor rates are at. Just so folks kind of get an idea, I did some pricing this morning. This is not an offer to lend. I'm just some guy on YouTube. NMLS number 1088993. For a rate where you're not paying points, if you're an investor and you're putting 25% down, we're at about 6.6. And actually in this rate buy down strategy that I went over on a video I made for tomorrow, we looked at 6.6 with 0 points and then 5.375 with 3 points. Not everyone's going to want to pay 3 points, but the whole point of the rate buy down strategy is having the seller pay for it, right? An example I used, the seller basically gives you a credit for $11,250 and it buys your rate down on a $500,000 purchase, 25% down to 5.375. So base rate, no points, 6.6, buy down options available to get it even lower if that's what it takes to make your numbers work. And I can tell you from an investor standpoint, got my investor hat on today, this market is going to be fun. Over the next 6 to 12 months, there's going to be sellers that are in a position to sell. And we haven't been in this position for a long time. So it's going to feel good to have a little bit of leverage as an investor, to get seller concessions, to get, a lower price, all kinds of stuff where sellers are going to feel some pain, especially the unreasonable ones where you can see it. You see something go up and you go $599. Is that person out of their mind? 2020, 2021, the people that were out of their mind and priced it out still sold because of the type of market that we were in. Fast forward to mid 2022, people who are out of their mind and unreasonable in pricing are going to be unpleasantly surprised when their house sits for 2 or 3 weeks. They have a come to Jesus with their agent. They lower it by $50,000. And then by then, people are kind of moved on. When a listing isn't new, it presents a stale image to the market. For whatever that's worth, that's just how it's perceived by people. It's been on the market for 3 weeks. Something must be wrong with it. And so then you lower it and less people are looking at it because it's not a brand new listing. And so it's less likely to sell at that 550 mark, even though it's been lowered by 50,000 than if it would have been listed at 550 in the first place. So maybe it sits even longer. Now the seller's like, holy moly, what's going on? Trying to catch a falling knife, go to 5.25 or 500. Some of that stuff is going to happen in my opinion. And I, for one, am excited for it, especially for investors who don't have to be picky, right? As an investor, you don't have to go out there and be upset if a seller doesn't accept your offer, which matches the return you need, right? You just go on and submit another offer on another house. So fun times ahead. Drew A, DSCR loans. Let me know what you want to know. Very, very popular. I'm writing more of those now than ever before. Debt service coverage ratio loans. It doesn't really get much simpler than that. The debt service covers the mortgage, or the rent covers the debt service, which is the mortgage. And that's about all it takes, truth be told. I've got plenty of investors that with decent credit and 20% down, or actually 25%, don't even need a debt service coverage ratio. Like it doesn't even apply. It takes a little bit of a hit to the rate, but anyhow, let me know what questions you have on that. There's plenty I can talk on that. Kevin Hawthorne, thanks for joining, man. I appreciate you. Jeanette, hiya. Adrian, glad you made it on nice and early. Thanks for joining. It's getting spicy out here in the real estate market. It's getting interesting. Wait for a cash out refi. Please elaborate. It all depends on your reasoning for a cash out refinance. As I've said in other live streams or interviews that I've done, a lot of cash out refinances do not make sense. If you're going from 3% to 6%, you would need some good reasons for a cash out refinance in this rate environment. And I don't expect rates to go down anytime soon. But if next year, call it Q1 or Q2 of next year, we see 4% interest rates, it might be the same thing you're running into if you got 2.75% money. So I think it all depends on your scenario. There's 1,000 different variables that are going to determine whether a cash out refinance makes sense, right? Hey, Drew, I would love for you to elaborate on this, calling sellers that have had listings listed for 60 days. I would love to hear what kind of response you're getting from sellers. Are they still in denial about the fact that their house hasn't sold? Because a lot of people I find are just in denial or just don't understand enough. When you call them and say, hey, listen, I'd like to, like you're talking about creative financing, or you want to ask them if they'll do seller financing or they'll do a seller carryback or whatever the case may be. And they're like, no, I'm going to sell this thing. You're like, I hate to break this to you, Mr. Seller, but you've had this home on the market for 2 months and it hasn't sold. So your price is probably too high. All the things that you want are probably not going to happen. Let's discuss. Oh, that coffee's hot. I warmed it up for 2 minutes. Woo! Matt Bittner, thanks for joining. Appreciate you being here. Oh, I saw this question somewhere else. Will I be hit with a supplemental tax bill if I'm not having utilized an escrow account? Mortgage payment is only principal and interest. Yes, you will. I've got at least 2 videos on my channel about supplemental tax bills without making it too complicated. You buy the house in June. The last owner had paid property taxes through the end of the year, and that's based on a lower tax rate. You close on your deal in June or July. The assessor goes, oh, wait, we collected on a tax bill that was lower, but now we see the $500,000 purchase price. We've got to get a supplemental bill that represents the new value from now until the end of that billing cycle, whenever it is, right? And it's different parts of the country, different counties. They're going to hit you with that, whether you're paying it through the mortgage company or on your own. It's still the same thing. It's a tax bill that has been collected based on the old assessment. And when you purchase, it creates a new assessment because there's a new value assigned or a new purchase price. So you are going to get that. All right, Sophia. Good news today, please. Okay, what kind of good news do you want? Markets are closed, so rates aren't moving at all. which might be good news, right? Rates rates didn't get worse today. They didn't move. I think it depends on how you look at it. And with everything, it's glass half full or half empty. Inventory is up 5.6%. By the end of the month, from the metrics that I've been tracking and following, great sources like Altos Research, we're going to have the same amount of inventory at the end of this month than our highest point last year. Inventory will continue to increase through September, October. And so there's going to be more to choose from. Stuff is going to sit on the market for longer. Demand is down, as you would expect, because prices are up and rates are up. 18 million people have been priced out. It doesn't mean that you're going to get something for 30% less next month or the month after, or even 6 months from now. What it does mean is that home price appreciation is going to slow a ton, probably grind to a halt, which is a good thing. Go from 20% appreciation to 0. I wouldn't be surprised, and I'd love to see it. Thinking that we're going to see home price depreciation of the magnitude of 20, 30, 40% is probably a pipe dream. It makes for a good thumbnail. It makes for a good blog article or a good video, but it's just probably not that likely to happen. Even Diana Olick, it's a forever bear, isn't going to buy into that. But the good news is it's getting easier. Investors, owner occupants, everybody is going to have more leverage in Q3 and Q4 of this year versus what we've seen over the last 2.5 years. It doesn't get much better than that when we think of good news, right? What are your views of the market at the question mark? The market is slowing, for sure. And less demand. Things are taking longer to sell. The tides are returning. It's getting easier for home buyers. What you don't want to confuse that with is, we're going to see a housing crash and you shouldn't buy. If you wait for that, you might be sitting on your hands for 5 years. You're not going to sit on your hands and have home prices be 50% more 5 years from now. I do not believe that. But what could happen is you wait 2 years, home prices are the same, mortgage rates are the same, and you spend another 2 years renting and waited for some sort of golden opportunity that might not present itself, right? If you're ready, I would pay less attention to market and more attention to your specific scenario. Financially, I'm ready. Down payment wise, I'm ready. Budget wise, I'm ready. All that stuff, I'm ready. Let's buy. Yeah, you're right, Matt. I think this is something that I'll speak on. The rate hikes could lead to layoffs and eventually affect housing. We're seeing that. Like anybody who's paying attention at all can see the writing on the wall that we could and likely will see a recession. Companies are laying people off. Rate hikes don't just affect mortgage and housing, but they affect companies, and companies are laying folks off. Interesting thing I saw earlier talking about all the migration to other parts of the country. And there's metrics through LinkedIn that will track where people are applying for remote jobs. Maybe they moved to a cheaper part of the country, i.e. like left my home state of California, moved to Idaho 3 years ago, and were working remote. Like a lot of these places, Florida, Nevada, Idaho, Tennessee, Arizona, saw a bunch of influx of people working remotely because they could for the last 3 years. As companies lay folks off or say you've got to come to the office, you don't have a job, will we see a reversal in those migration patterns? I don't know. I don't know if people want to come back to California for the jobs. I don't know if people that went from New York down to Florida are going to go back to New York. But even if a fraction of them do, what does that do to New York home prices and to Florida home prices? Important thing to think about. Real estate, albeit we can look at it from a national perspective, is local. and every market is different. You might see something different in Florida than what happens in Texas. Texas might be different than California. New York real estate might be something different as well. So ultimately, it's local. We can't say that, home price appreciation is going from 15% to 3% and leave it at that. Some markets might see 10%. Other markets might see negative 5%. Some 3%, some negative 20%, right? If they've seen stuff explode over the last few years, like those are the markets where it is possible to see a pullback strong enough to cause home price depreciation. Some markets come to mind are Idaho and, some parts of Arizona. But we gonna see. Drew A, why would I refi out of my 2.875 interest rate on my home? I don't see a good reason to, especially, these are all scenario specific, right? I'll get back to you. I didn't really answer. It was just for dramatic effect. I was trying to think of something creative to say, and I just couldn't. It didn't come to me. This is a good question. 1,000 people are asking this right now, Drew, myself included. You're going to see more home equity lines of credit. You're going to see more closed-end seconds. I'm going to have access to more and more of those products in Q3 and Q4 of this year, just because there's a demand for them. And whenever there's demand, lenders are going to come up with those products. Yeah, with 11 trillion in untapped equity, there's a lot of folks that have home projects or other things that they're going to tap that equity. They're just going to do it through a HELOC or a closed-end second. They're not going to refinance their first. So I'm fully aware that refinance is like gone, all except for the scenarios where there's a life event where you have to refinance. I think over the last 2 months, my business is 90 to 95% purchase. So I'm not terribly worried about refinance. What am I in denial about, dude? I'll call again in 30 days to see if reality has sunk in yet. Okay. I'm trying to scroll up. Oh, sorry. You weren't talking about me. You're talking about the home sellers. Yeah, I believe it, dude. 100% denial. And that's the thing too, is every day I deal with it too. And I'm on the buyer side working with buyers, whether they're investors or owner ocs or me and my wife are personally buying properties. Sellers just have a little bit of ego right now. And the listing agents, right? Like, chest out, like big stuff, right? I had one recently where I don't know what it was, but my client's offer didn't get accepted. I didn't take offense to it, even though I'm vested in it. I want my clients to be successful. And the seller was being kind of unreasonable. I thought to myself, like, man, like if this deal you have that's better than ours in this moment falls out, you're going to be singing a different tune when we're next in line, right? Especially if it's 2 or 3 weeks from now and all the buyers that were interested in your house have gone elsewhere and maybe find something better. And then you lost that highest and best offer. And now you're coming back to us. You should probably be a little bit kinder about how you talk to second place, bucko. Adrian, where do we go? AJ Kamoth. Good to see you, brother. I'm doing good, man. Hope you and your family are doing well. Why is the Zillow always out of sync with Zestimates? Don't I send you the HomeBot? Let me know if you're hooked up on my HomeBot. Those things should be pretty accurate. But with any algorithm-based home value estimator, it's not always going to be completely accurate. So yeah, you can look on Redfin for that. I wouldn't sweat it, right? You're going to stay in your home for decades. Somebody like you who's who's a fan of real estate are going to buy multiple pieces of property, and I wouldn't be too concerned about what the value is this month and next month. As much as I like to do it, as much as the next guy, I literally update, net worth sheet every single month with a new property value, new loan payoff balance, new everything. I know that the value from month to month doesn't have a real, it's not that important for long-term wealth building. You just got to set it and forget it. All right, Matt, I'm pretty sure you're the guy in the comments that just says that housing's going up 85%. I know it's just for jokes and fun. None of us believe that's going to happen. Should I hold off on buying a condo right now in the Bay Area, California? I don't see demand falling off a cliff for living in areas like the Bay Area, San Jose, and all that. So I would say, why would you want to hold off? What do you expect to see in the future? What do you think would be better 6 months from now, a year from now, 2 years from now? Do you want better interest rates? Do you want lower prices? If it's either one of those two things, you just can't be guaranteed any of it. It's like if you really love a company like Tesla, and at any given point in the last 5 years, you were like, I'm not going to buy Tesla stock right now because it's up over the last month. Well, if you like it over a 10, 20, 30-year horizon, which is how I feel about real estate, always going to increase when you look at it from a long-term perspective, then you buy. As long as you qualify, you're comfortable with the monthly payment, and it's in an area that you like, all those other things apply, right? So I wouldn't necessarily hold off. I don't see any big advantage to holding off. 6 months from now or 9 months from now, you're going to get the thing for 30% less. Maybe, just don't be in a huge hurry and don't feel like you got to be out there bidding $100,000 above ask on every single property. Because even though the Bay Area and San Jose and some of those areas I serve still have quite a bit of demand, it, like most areas, is, that demand is being pulled back. When I say that 18 million people by some study or some metric have been priced out, that's in multiple different price points, right? So if you're buying a condo in the Bay Area for $800,000, there might have been so many millions that were qualified to buy that, and that is down 20, 30% on who can still afford to buy it. If you still can, you still qualify, I say go out there and make it happen. Always a great day to buy a great cash flowing deal. I totally agree. This is probably a good place to insert this too. Let me see if I can find it. I did this, and the YouTube video will come out tomorrow, but I'm going to try to zoom in on it just because I think it's valuable for folks. We'll do this investment property buy down strategy for the people. And I'm going to see if I can blow it up big enough. All right, give me 9 more seconds. I shall share this screen here. I want to make it big enough to where everybody can see it. Share screen. Agree. All right, 500,000. Like I was saying earlier, this is kind of hard to see. Let me know if you guys can see that. I'll zoom in. Can you guys see these numbers? Like this is 75% loan to value, 500K purchase, 375 loan amount, 3,005 is the payment at a 6.625 rate. So a rate buy down strategy may be Drew's calling on this seller and saying, hey, listen, Mr. Seller, like you ain't getting 500. You've been on the market for this long. He knows he can't pay 3,005 a month and get this thing to cash flow. But if you got it to a payment of 2,704, it would cash flow. To get to this 5.375 interest rate, you need 11,250, which is 3 points being paid on the interest rate. If you've got a motivated seller, you could offer them the same 500,000, ask for 11,250 in seller credit, and use it to buy the rate down. You save $300 a month by spending that money to buy the rate down. You could, I mean, let's even take it one step further. 60 days, this person's been sitting on the property. What if you got it for like 485 and that 11,250? Now you're down to 2623. That's $380 cheaper per month. And you didn't come down a lot. You offered 15,000 less and 11,250 in credit. Actually 10,900 in credit, because now we got a smaller loan amount. You don't need as much. So 11 grand in credit. These are the types of things that excite me about being an investor in this type of market. You're going to be able to have these conversations where you might have got laughed out of the room 2020 and 2021, and all of a sudden you've got some sellers that are listening. So not sure if you guys can see that very clearly, but look out for that video tomorrow. I think it's a good one. I think it's a cool strategy. And I think that it's one of those things where it's going to allow investors to get creative in the way they structure a deal. Because as an investor, price, interest rate, all of it is just a function of what number you need based on your criteria. If you say, I need 10% cash on cash returns, and all your numbers, what CapEx is, what vacancy rate is, what all that other stuff is, you just plug stuff in and say, hey, listen, this guy's asking $550 for this triplex. I know rents. I know how much it's going to cost for property management. I know capital expenditures. I know vacancy rate. I know all this. I need to get my mortgage number, my debt service, to this number. If I can't get it to 550 price with this interest rate, what if I go to 525 with this interest rate? What if I go to 530 with this interest rate? You can use seller credit to buy down interest rate. That's why I think it's a fun numbers game if you know how to play. G. Glover. Hello. When you refinance a house, does your balance start over? If you purchase for 500K, you pay down 200K over the years. When you refinance, does the balance go back to 500? Great question. Thanks for asking. Your balance is a function of, in your scenario, let's say you paid it down 200,000. You owe, if you bought it for 500, you might have put a down payment. You might have owed less. But let's just say, for your example, you pay it down to 300,000. When you refinance, there's a couple different ways you can refinance. You can refinance, pay off the old balance. There's going to be some title fees, sometimes lender fees. You might prepay property tax and insurance, and all that stuff gets rolled in. But you might be just refinancing to lower your interest rate. A lot of people did that in 2020 and 2021. Those other costs roll in to where maybe your new balance is 306,000, but you lowered your interest rate and you went back to a 30-year loan. Or you could refinance it to 20-year or 15-year. Lenders offer 12 years, 19 years, any term you really want. That's what it would reset to. In other cases where, now your house is worth 800,000 and you've got the need to consolidate debt, put on a new roof, maybe put a down payment on another investment property, you might pay off the old 300,000, take 100,000 in cash out for projects and paying off of debt. And then those other costs that are associated with it roll into the loan. So that 6,000 goes on there as well. Now you owe 406. So your new loan balance is 406. You can finance that over 15 years, 20 years, 30 years. So people that are like, hey, you're resetting to 500 or you're resetting to 30 years or you're doing this, you get to pick how that works. And 2020 and 2021, where we refinanced hundreds of people, and it was, dozens, hundreds of different scenarios. Some cash out, some non-cash out, some paying off debt through the close, some not. Some at 15 years, some at 30, some wanted a 22-year term, some got an 8-year term. All kinds of different ways you can do that. So to answer your question, it doesn't reset to 500,000. And you really can structure your loan and figure out what works best for you in your scenario. Talking to a great mortgage broker is the best way to do that. If you get somebody in a call center who just wants a sale, they don't care about how they structure it. They just need to get you closed so they can get their commission. Go to greatmortgagebroker.com, fill out the form, let us know where you're at and how we can help. We will help you structure a loan that makes the most sense for you. I talked to a lot of people that during 2020 and 2021 called me and said, listen, I've got a 4.625 interest rate. I've got to lower the rate on it. I've been paying on it for 9 years, so I've got 21 years left, but I'm going to retire in 13 years. I'd really like to pay this thing off in 13 years. I'm okay with a higher payment. What do you think we should do? Well, we could refinance it to another 30. You could have this payment. You could make extra payments to plan to pay it off in 13. If you prefer to have it structured in a way where there's no depending on you to make the extra payments, we could do a 13-year loan as well. Lower interest rate, higher payment that you're responsible for every month, but it's going to pay off in 13 years as long as you continue to make the payments. And so, we structured some in that way to where it's a 13-year term. And, it was going to pay off in 13 years because that aligned with that person's goals and their specific scenario. All right. Where do we go on questions? Where did we go? How do banks view subject to or seller finance income when applying for a loan? If you've got income that's coming in from a note where you seller financed, most lenders, and this goes for any income at all, it's what hits the tax return. If you've got some agreement where somebody leaves an envelope under your door, don't expect a lender to count that as income. If you've got, rental income, investment income from a note, from a subject, from a seller finance, no matter what type of income you have, a lender truly just cares about what shows up on your tax return. And for self-employed folks, they know it's not your gross income. It's not the 1.2 million in sales. It's the bottom line number. On some schedules of the tax return, it's line 32, which is net income. You got write-offs. I understand. I'm with you. I don't want to send all my money to the government either. But after all the write-offs, your net income is what's going to be calculated for what you qualify. So hopefully that answer helped. This is a great question. What's your opinion on institutions kind of driving the market? I.e., if you follow what institutions are doing, you will know where the market is heading. Do you know if institutions are selling? What I do know is that real estate's a good long-term investment, safe investment, very tax beneficial. And so it's no surprise that big institutions would buy. The scary part is that I don't think they're selling. And I think that they recognize, just like a lot of real estate investors recognize, that rents are going to continue to increase. And so these institutions can hold on to these real estate assets, which in the short term, if they're flat, if they go down 10%, in the long term, they will appreciate. I promise you that. They're going to be worth more in 10 to 20 years. Over the course of those 10 to 20 years, they're going to create cash flow because rents are going to continue to go up. And they're going to be able to write off the depreciation because that's what you can do with real estate when you own it. And so I don't necessarily see institutions doing a bunch of selling, which further hurts the supply problem, which we already have in this country when it comes to, single family housing. And so I can tell you one thing for certain: institutions are smart and they've got good advisors. It's very, very unlikely they take billions in real estate holdings and sell them all at once, because what happens with that is you basically crush the value of your own asset by putting a bunch of stuff out there all at once. So if they did sell, they would do it strategically, and they would sell a little bit at a time as to not disrupt the value of that asset they hold. If you or I owned 100 homes in a neighborhood, it would be really stupid for us to just go list 100 homes all at once. There would be a gut of supply. People would have so much stuff to choose from that they wouldn't be bidding like crazy and pay you, the max amount possible. They would go, well, shoot, there's 100 homes to choose from. I'll bid a little bit on this one, a little bit on that one. If I don't get it, there's 98 others, right? A more strategic approach from, a scenario in which me or you own 100 homes in a neighborhood, or an investor owns 1,000 in a county, is we're going to sell 10 this quarter, and maybe we space it out to where it's, one every 10 days over the next 100 days. Whatever that is, right? More strategic and not all at once. That was a good question. I got my brain turning. Thanks for the kind words. I appreciate it. I'm having fun. Alex Veloz, thanks for joining, man. One rental at a time. My buddy Mike Zuber. Every Wednesday, me and him put together 2 or 3 videos. So if you like my channel, I recommend to everybody, go to One Rental at a Time, subscribe to that channel, find the playlist where me and him have talked every Wednesday for over a year. So there's got to be 150 to 200 videos in that one talking about all kinds of different stuff. And he just comes to me with really insightful questions on mortgage and what I'm seeing in the mortgage market. With all that being said, Alex, I know Zuber in his course has some Excel spreadsheets that are pretty good. When you say rental software, are you trying to calculate rents? Because I'll tell you a good one is my buddy Chandler David Smith has his CDS calculator. And where is it? I had it in my phone. I was going to try to pull it up. Is it under finance? I've got so many calculators. I love a good calculator. Where would I put CDS calculator? I've got a mortgage biz. I've got a finance. Real estate? Come on, Mateo. Oh, there it is. There it is. So on this calculator, it's pretty cool. You put in purchase price, down payment, make ready, vacancy, maintenance management, utilities, and then you run the numbers, and it gives you cash on cash, cap rate, total ROI, all kinds of cool stuff. I don't know. My camera should be zooming in. Oh, there we go. But yeah, it's pretty cool. This is all the stuff you put in there. Come on, zoom in, baby. There we go. Income, expenses, and then you just press run numbers. Chandler David Smith's another good follow if you want to check him out. This guy, Chandler David Smith on YouTube. Anyhow, that's one I'd recommend if you're trying to run numbers on investments. Alex, thanks for following, brother. Stop screen. There we go. All right, BOJ IM have a HELOC with a teaser rate of 2.24 for 6 months that started in April. I bet it's going to get close to 10% after 6 months due to variable rate being prime plus 1%. No more free money. Yeah, I'd find somewhere to refinance that bad boy, maybe get it into some fixed rate. Mark Henry, we're closing at 4.99 on July 7th. Are we going to be underwater? Rockland, California. No way, no how are you going to be underwater. You're going to have a 30-year fixed rate mortgage under 5%. Like if you're living in this house for the next 5, 7, 10 years, I would literally shut off housing news. I mean, it can get pretty, it's just bad, man. It's just like, that if it bleeds, it leads. That like the more dramatic people can be, the more clicks they're going to get. And so they're going to make more of those videos. I can guarantee you, end of year this year, that house you bought is not going to be like, it'll be in a band of 10%, right? Like it's not going to be worth 20% more. Anybody who buys on speculation is out of their mind. It's not going to be worth 10% less. It's going to be within a band, right? Like if you bought it for 600 in Rockland, I think that it's going to be worth somewhere near 600 at the end of the year. But watching it every month, whether it goes up or down or sideways, shouldn't really be what you focus on. You bought with 4.99%, I'm guessing 30-year fixed rate money. If you've got a job that you're confident that you're going to keep and you're going to continue to get paid, and that's a mortgage payment you can afford, that's really all that matters, right? Losing sleep over what it's worth 6 months from now, next year, or the year after, I think is just a complete waste of time. I would hope that it's not something where like you're getting out of it in 9 months, right? If you bought a stock and you're like, I'm going to sell in March of 2023, and you're really concerned about that stock price in 2023, because that's when you're going to sell it and go do whatever you're going to do, then you look at it every month and you stress on it. Like if you don't plan on exiting this piece of real estate, then whether it's worth 600, 700, 800, or 550 shouldn't really matter. The fact that you've got a fixed rate mortgage and a payment of $32.26, which you can afford, or whatever that number is, like that's what matters, right? So don't let that increase your heart rate, worrying about how much it's worth. That's my best advice. There we go. Joey Garesi, all the way from Oklahoma City. I think that's where you're at, right? I know you're a Thunder fan. Hit the like button. He said it. Smash the like button for the YouTube algorithm. Is that what the kids still say? Are there appraisals risk in this market? How to avoid such issues? I've seen a couple of houses in the Bay are selling slightly less than comparables. If you've got comparables that are higher, I think that's a good thing, because you buy a house, you agree to buy it for $1.2 million with 20% down, you get into contract. One, you should have something written in the contract where if it appraises for less, there's a game plan. You're either willing to pay more or you're not. But all that is usually written in the contract up front. If it's not written in, then you can renegotiate if it comes in short. But if it comes in at 1.25 because comparables are higher, or 1.3 million, great. You bought an asset for 1.2 that appraised. Given, appraisals, I wouldn't like sweat either, right? It's an opinion of value on that day based on comparable sales. That coming in higher doesn't affect you at all. The lender just says, okay, good. 1.2, 1.5, like 1.275. As long as it's above 1.2 and that's what you're in contract at, and we're financing it based on that, you're good. Joey Goresi, I just priced this morning And for like a no cost mortgage, Joey, again, not an offer to lend, NMLS number 1088993. But this scenario, I looked at 5% down, probably about 5.875 if you don't want to pay any points or any costs. That's a primary. If you're going to buy an investment property, I priced it with 25% down because that's the most used number when people are buying investment property stuff. It's about 6.625. So that spread is 0.75% between the two. Not a huge difference. And truth be told, like I'm seeing such a small spread in those because on primaries, people are less apt to pay points because they refinance their primary more often than they do investment. Where in investment properties, I see a lot more often an investor says, hey, in order to make this work, I need the rate to be 5.99. I'm willing to pay a 1.5 for that rate. No problem. I'm going to set it and forget it. I'm not going to look at this mortgage for, the next 10 years. So I'll pay the 1.5 up front. If it's a 42-month break even, no big deal. So then that makes that rate, closer primary to investment, although the investment might come with points. Hopefully that made sense. That's what I'm seeing. I feel like I'm more in the battle with people these days, as far as like in the weeds. I'm obviously running a business and I've got a lot of great support staff doing their thing, but I'm in the game now, running scenarios, helping investors win. This is fun. Let's do some more of this. Kyle, yes. I'm going to say this in the nicest way possible. If you get somebody on the interwebs, whether it's YouTube, whether it's somebody's podcast, no matter where it is, if they're talking about bank statements loans or they're talking about DSCR loans and they're quoting rates in the 5s, they're leaving out a couple small details. One being the cost to get a DSCR loan or a bank statement loan in the 5s is going to be something, right? You don't have those loans with the same rates as a primary residence home loan, both with no cost, right? If a primary is 575 or 5875 and that doesn't cost any points, do you think that you can get a bank statement loan for 5.875 with no points? Absolutely, positively not. Could you get it at 5.875? Of course you could. Will it cost 3 points? Yes, most likely. Not exact figures. I'm just spitballing here, but if you're going to get one of these loans without points, it's going to be 7 to 8%. Just got one approved, a couple points, and we're in the low 6s, right? So, and that one's actually one of those DSCRs I talked about where we're not worried about the debt service coverage ratio. It's a DSCR loan with no ratio. We don't care what the rents are compared to the mortgage. Anyhow, that's that. Whew, Joey, you right, man. We have a big night coming up. Oh, I didn't realize you guys had number 2. You guys got the number 2. The Sat Kings were talking about trading the number 4 pick for maybe some for some win now folks versus train somebody up. Would be interesting to see. Yeah, I think what I'm going to do is at Golden One for season ticket holders, they do like a draft party. You can go and watch the draft from Golden One Center. I think I'm going to do that. Tuesday, we're going to go meet Mike Brown, talk to our new coach who just came off a championship with the Warriors. Now coming to coach the Kings. Watch out, Garessi. I'll bet you tonight, bro. Kings record versus OKC record next season. You let me know. Whatever the bet is, I'll send you a package out there to OKC if you win, and vice versa. If I win, you got to send me something. I'll hold it up live on a YouTube live that I'm doing, in 2024 after the season is over. Or I guess 2023, right? We'd know by the summer when the Kings make the playoffs finally for the first time in 17 years. Okay. enough about basketball. You're welcome. You're welcome. Let me see if I can do this. Is this against rules to share a video? I don't think so. Let me see. I'm going to share this video because it's really good. If I can get my girl, Diana Olick, on here. Stand by. This isn't the video. Why is my computer so slow? It's working fine on my stream, huh? This is the video that I was telling folks, kind of went into some detail about the difference between now and 2007 and why it's a lot different environment in regards to ARMs. Ooh, right at the top, are foreclosures coming? Come on, baby.
It was just over a decade ago that the housing market
I'm going to share this. If I have
collapsed, prices plunged, and millions of homes went into foreclosure.
mortgage market red flags. Are foreclosures coming?
For a repeat? That question is starting to be asked.
Listen to Diana Olick.
Diana Olick joins us right now with more. What do you think, Diana?
Well, Becky, I think the short answer is no, but there are some red flags. So I want to show you a whole lot of data to make the point, a whole lot of stats, all from Black Knight. For the 53.5 million first lien home mortgages in America today, the average borrower credit score is a record high, 751. It was below 700 back in 2010. And thanks to the run-up in home prices, those borrowers have record tappable equity, and that's how much you can take out of your home and still leave 20% equity in it. $11 trillion in total, up 34% from a year ago. Really record low mortgage leverage today. So that's a significant cushion in case home prices soften or even fall. Very little negative equity today, as opposed to 1 in 4 who are underwater back then. So what about the riskier loans? Well, there are just 2.5 million adjustable rate mortgages outstanding today. Compare that to 13 million in 2007, just before the subprime crash. Today, 1.4 million of those are facing rate resets higher. And yes, those are at risk. But back then, about 10 million of those were facing resets. Mortgage
14% of what we had back then for mortgage adjustable rate resets.
Currently past due. And even with that jump in delinquencies during the first year of the pandemic, there are currently fewer past due mortgages than there were before the pandemic. There are still about 300,000 borrowers who have exhausted pandemic-related forbearance programs and are still delinquent. That's one to watch. The real risk, though, to housing right now is a recession. If people start to lose their jobs and then they can't make the payments. Becky?
Yeah, Diana, all of those statistics make you feel a little better when you compare the now versus then. I think the bigger question still is, what about new buyers, first-time home buyers who are trying to get into this?
Affordability is a problem.
A home that they own right now that they can trade in for it. You can stay in your home if you've got one at this point, but trying to get in at a higher mortgage rate means affordability is just going to be a lot tougher.
Yeah, affordability is the real risk to the overall housing market right now, because even though we have these higher rates, which is slowing sales, there's still demand out there and still record low supply. So we have not seen those prices come down yet. We do expect to see them ease up a little bit. But the issue is, if you own a home and you can't move up, you're not going to want to sell it. If you want to buy a home, you're going to stretch, and that puts risk into the market as well. And then there's the question of those who bought in the last year, who might have bought at the top of the market, and then they have issues or during the recession, any financial stress. That could be another one to watch, Becky.
All right. So somebody who is a perma bear, like literally has talked about crash for a long time, now is giving us all these reasons why it's not that scary of a time. How compared to 2007, like we're in much better shape. So I think what I take from that is one, I agree with that sentiment. I do also agree with the fact that if we go into recession, like that's the real risk, right? And so for buyers right now that I talk to, like make sure you've got a strong financial footing. You've got a stable job, credit's good, down payment's good, and you can afford that $3,000 a month mortgage payment. I can tell you from somebody on the front lines, all too often, and especially in the last couple of years when rates were at all-time lows, companies were doing great, offering great incentives to their employees. If you bought for the maximum which you qualified for, stuck yourself into a $3,200 a month mortgage payment, which was probably a big purchase with a little rate, then you find yourself in a position where, you've got issues with employment, laying folks off, cutting your hours, or whatever the case may be. Like you could be in trouble. I just don't know how widespread that would have to be, or how much of like how nasty of a recession we would have to go in to see enough foreclosures to really see a housing crisis. I just don't necessarily see it, but that's yet to be seen. I think we're closing in on an hour. Let me see what else we got. Yeah, you're right, Kyle. Like home prices compared to median household is pretty crazy. Even in the market I'm in where household income is relatively high, when you're 5x, 6xing household income versus purchase price, especially at today's rates, it can look, well, it's a little risky. I was going to say it could look risky. It's a little risky, right? I try to be conservative, and I try to advise people correctly to be conservative in their home buying, right? Like don't go tie yourself to a $12,900 a month mortgage payment if you don't need to. Please, recession. Okay, Joey. How do you mortgage LOs help buyers succeed and their realtors that might be on the other side of the country? Calls to listing agents, quick closing. I know local lenders are often preferred. This is a great question, Joey. And really, while I'm licensed all over the country, when it comes to buying, I'm generally going to have a loan officer in your community be the one that's handling that transaction, right? And so it might not be Matt, the mortgage guy, personally calling a listing agent. I might have Connor Wilson or Bo Chase or, somebody else as the agent on the deal who works in that market and can say, hey, I've got somebody pre-approved. As far as like how you help buyers succeed and you help realtors succeed is you educate them, right? A buyer who's educated is going to be empowered through that education to know exactly what they qualify for, what the mortgage payment looks like at $300,000, at $350,000, and so before they even go submit an offer, they know exactly what they're getting into. And then once they submit it, we can call the listing agent and say, listen, like we run a highly efficient operation and we've got a great reputation to withhold. So I can tell you with absolute certainty, you get a pre-approval letter from us. We've vetted this client. We know full well we can close it in timely fashion. We've done all the work up front. Sometimes so much that the buyer is upset with us for collecting too much docs, but doing that to protect them, doing that to protect the agents involved in the transaction to make sure we can close on it. Our company goal, just so you know it, Joey, and I just came back, 2 weeks ago from our summit, is to get to a 12-day average closing, not just sometimes we can close in 11 or 12 days and we did a great job and we all high five and post a graphic on social, but average closing to where like we'd be upset if it took 17 days to close on a loan. We're not quite there yet. I think we have like a 15.8 day average, but closing in a timely fashion is important for everybody involved. So quick closings are important. Having enough qualified professionals to educate the client is a really important thing. And all those things combined are what is really setting up buyers to win and realtors, being partnered with a great team like you mortgage, I've actually got some pamphlets and some graphics I can give you, is going to help them win, because we're really serving buyers at a high level, which is, the client of both of ours. When the client has a great first in class, best in class experience, they're more likely to refer that agent and us to their family, friends, and all those in the oh, this is a good question. In any market. Just had to finish that thought. Sorry, I got lost. Thank you, VND. I appreciate the super chat, the $4.99. I'm glad I stayed on over an hour because I got me an extra $5. So thank you for that. Any chance of getting approved after Chapter 13 discharge in this market? For sure you can. Feel free to reach out to us. Go to greatmortgagebroker.com, fill out a form. Depending on what state you're in, you're going to be connected with somebody on my team who's licensed in that state, can help you get pre-approved. We've got lenders who are very flexible with the amount of seasoning you need. But FHA loans are available essentially the day after the discharge, right? So as long as you've got that discharged, you should be in a position where you can buy something. We've actually got a couple of those FHA refinances in the pipeline right now after a Chapter 13 discharge. So if you're asking now, like you've already had a Chapter 13 discharged, again, go to greatmortgagebroker.com, fill out a form, let us know where you're at or how we can help. Or, part of me thinks that you might be asking, as it's a future planning thing, the Chapter 13, just know that I've seen a lot of these. And so I know Chapter 13 pretty well. You're going to make your scheduled payments to the trustee. And once those payments are done, it might take 3, 4, 6 months, depending on what state you're in, until you actually get that discharge. So allow for that time between your last payment and the discharge, and then go out, any number of days after it to, a mortgage broker to go get yourself pre-approved. As is the case with a lot of folks, if your scenario is not super specific, or I'm sorry, if your scenario is not super plain vanilla, you want to get yourself pre-approved. It's even more important to get pre-approved. Any lender who does any amount of business is going to be able to submit your loan as a TBD underwrite, meaning not only are me and my team going to review it and say, listen, we can get you a loan done. We know we can because we did this one where the BK was discharged in May, and we've got this one in process where the BK was discharged in December. Submit it to a lender. See if there's anything within that credit report, anything within your profile that they're going to flag. Take care of that stuff in advance before you're out there submitting offers. So once you do submit offers, we have already vetted all that stuff and are in a position to get you off and going into the finish line in a timely fashion. All right. Hour and 8 minutes. I did a lot of talking. If you got questions, fire them off there quick. Thanks again, VND, for the super chat. I appreciate you. Thanks, Joey, for joining. Appreciate you. Appreciate you talking with a realtor about you mortgage. And I'm going to actually get one of those pamphlets. Maybe I'll send you one because we've got some material that we're dispersing to realtor partners about the advantage of working with a U mortgage loan officer, trying to get to 3,000 of them by the end of 2024. So off we go. All right. Last question, then I'm out of here. What's the current average mortgage rate? The best way, and I'm going to pull it up here because this question is a pretty common one. If you go to mortgagenewsdaily.com, I'll show you guys. I just typed in mortgagenewsdaily.com. You can go to mortgage rates. And this is primary residence, 30-year fixed. Just go to 30-year. And this will give you a chart that is a survey from lenders across the country. It gives you a close enough, like I was saying earlier, as a broker, I'm probably 5875. But Friday, since the markets were closed today, it says 6.03, right? And here's the chart. We had some bad days, right? We popped above 6. I would guess that when this opens tomorrow, It's going to be slightly better because Friday was a decent day. It might poke below 6% when this thing opens on Tuesday. But yeah, Mortgage News Daily is the best place. Just a rough idea. There's plenty of other sites that are going to suck you in. If you go to mtmg.com, which is the shortened version of mattthemortgageguy.com, it's gonna try to suck you in to fill out a lead form, and then we're going to contact you. And we're not high pressure salespeople, so you wouldn't get hurt. But God forbid you fill something out on Bankrate or something. That would be bad. What am I doing? Remove this. All right. I've had enough. Hopefully you guys have had enough. Hopefully that was insightful. Join us every Monday at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Check out the video tomorrow on the rate buy down strategy. Like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends, share with your family. Don't get too close to the sun. It could cause something bad. See? Too close to the sun. I was flying too close to the sun. I'll tell you more about it next time. Stay tuned. Till next time, we gonna see.